Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips, betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. Religious doctrines are all illusions, they do not admit of proof, and no one can be compelled to consider them as true or to believe in them. No, our science is no illusion. But an illusion it would be to suppose that what science cannot give us we can get elsewhere. Religion is an illusion, and it derives its strength from the fact that it falls in with our instinctual desires. Where the questions of religion are concerned, people are guilty of every possible kind of insincerity and intellectual misdemeanor. It is that we are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never no helplessly unhappy as when we have lost our loved object of its love. The behavior of a human being in sexual matters is often a prototype for the whole of his other modes of reaction in life. Beauty has no obvious use, nor is there any clear cultural necessity for it. Yet civilization could not do without it. Neurotics complain of their illness, but they make the most of it, and when it comes to taking it away from them they will defend it like a lioness her young. The more the fruits of knowledge become accessible to men, the more widespread is the decline of religious belief. A man should not strive to eliminate his complexes but to get into accord with them. They are legitimately what directs his conduct in the world. Poets are masters of us ordinary men, in knowledge of the mind, because they drink at streams which we have not yet made accessible to science. A love that does not discriminate seems to me to forfeit a part of its own value, by doing an injustice to its object, and secondly, not all men are worthy of love. Instinct of love toward an object demands a mastery to obtain it, and if a person feels they can't control the object or feel threatened by it, they act negatively toward it. Where questions of religion are concerned, people are guilty of every possible sort of dishonesty and intellectual misdemeanor. When a love relationship is at its height, there is no room left for any interest in the environment. A pair of lovers are sufficient to themselves. No neurotic harbors thoughts of suicide which are not murderous impulses against others redirected upon himself. As regards intellectual work, it remains a fact, indeed, that great decisions in the realm of thought and momentous discoveries and solutions of problems are only possible to an individual, working in solitude. One thing only do I know for certain, and that is that man's judgments of value follow directly his wishes for happiness, that, accordingly, they are an attempt to support his illusions with arguments. The individual does actually carry on a double existence, one designed to serve his own purposes and another as a link in a chain, in which he serves against, or at any rate without, any volition of his own. It goes without saying that a civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. Conservatism, however, is too often a welcome excuse for lazy minds, loath to adapt themselves to fast-changing conditions. What is common in all these dreams is obvious. They completely satisfy wishes excited during the day which remain unrealized. They are simply and undisguisedly realizations of wishes. I was making frequent use of cocaine at that time. I had been the first to recommend the use of cocaine, in 1885, and this recommendation had brought serious reproaches down on me. A transference neurosis corresponds to a conflict between ego and ID, a narcissistic neurosis corresponds to that between ego and superego, and a psychosis to that between ego and outer world. Neurosis is the result of a conflict between the ego and its ID, whereas psychosis is the analogous outcome of a similar disturbance in the relation between the ego and its environment, outer world. We are what we are because we have been what we have been, and what is needed for solving the problems of human life and motives is not moral estimates but more knowledge. Life is impoverished, it loses in interest, when the highest stake in the game of living, life itself, may not be risked. It becomes as shallow and empty as, let us say, an American flirtation. Theoretical considerations require that what is today the object of a phobia must at one time in the past have been the source of a high degree of pleasure. According to the prevailing view, human sexual life consists essentially in an endeavor to bring one's own genitals into contact with those of someone of the opposite sex. The motive forces of fantasies are unsatisfied wishes, and every single fantasy is the fulfillment of a wish, a correction of unsatisfying reality. It only too often yields to the temptation to become sycophantic, opportunist and lying, like a politician who sees the truth but wants to keep his place in popular favor. Human life should not be considered as the proper material for wild experiments. Analogies, it is true, decide nothing, but they can make one feel more at home.